have a very interesting, good speaker for you. This year, we are building a solid foundation. That's our theme for this year. So this year, we're going to have good speakers for you that will help build the spiritual foundation because I've come to realize that America is weak because the family is weak, the foundation is weak that guys talk about. We have to build our house on a solid foundation. Dave Anderson is president of Learn to Lead, and he is our guest speaker for today. Dave is the author of 12 books, including How to Run Your Business by the book and How to Lead by the book. He authors a monthly leadership column for 2 national magazines, and his interviews and articles have appeared in hundreds of publications, including the Wall Street Journal, Investors Business Daily, and U.S. News and World Report. He is a frequent panelist on MSNBC's Your Business show. The foundation is Matthew's 2535 Foundation, whose mission is to bring food, housing, clothing, healing, and Christ to under-resourced and imprisoned people worldwide. And I want to tell you in advance that they have been a great help to us here at Bond with our private school, Bond Leadership Academy, also with our Home for Young Men. So I really, really appreciate them. And Dave, your subject is red belt mentality. Is that right?
Yes.
Come on down.
Thank you. Thank you, Reverend Peterson.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you. We will get to that in due time. It's very nice to be with you.
And there's some water if you want water, Dave.
Thank you very much. I want to talk about how to stay hungry for God with a red belt mentality. I don't know if you're familiar with that term, red belt mindset. It's a martial arts term. I find it applies very well to many things in life. I will give you a little background on how I learned about the term and then talk about how we can develop a stronger hunger and develop that mindset that keeps us hungrier for God. I didn't get into the martial arts until my 40s, and I remember one of the first days in the studio, the instructor pointed to a wall, and there were 12 belts on the wall. And they were all on a very nice plaque from white belt to black belt. And those were the 12 belts that we would have to go through to become a black belt in our style. And he pointed to the red belt. Looks just like this one here. And this was the one right next to the black belt. And he said, "Do you see that red belt?" I said, "Well, yes." He said, "Well, let me tell you something." He said, "The red belts are the most dangerous fighters in this studio or anywhere else you're likely to go and spar." And I was a little confused by that because I'm looking at the black belt. And I'm thinking, well, isn't that the point? Isn't that the objective, to become a black belt? And he said, "Don't get me wrong." He said, "We have some outstanding black belt fighters here." But he said, "But let me tell you what happens." He said, "Very often, somebody passes their black belt test, and they start to get this idea that now they have arrived. Okay, now they've kind of a know-it-all. Even though there are 10 degrees, there's decades more that you can learn." He said, "The number one thing most black belts do when they pass that test is they start putting on weight because they're not working as hard, they're not training as hard." He said, "I've seen people pass the test, and they don't come back to the studio for months. And when they do, they're really not working hard. They're walking around with their thumbs in their belt tubes like they're Jackie Chan giving advice to people." He said, but the red belts, he said, they're still hungry. They know they haven't arrived. They've got this sense of urgency, this intensity. They're training hard. They're coachable. They're teachable. He said they kind of have a chip on their shoulder, some of them, because they feel like they got to prove themselves. He said, "I've seen more hungry red belts knock down or knock out complacent black belts." He said, "Here's the lesson I want you to get." He said, "If you ever become a black belt, continue to think like a red." He said, "Act like a challenger, even if you're the champ." He said, "Challengers are hungry and they're humble and they're teachable. They have something to prove. Champs can get cocky and complacent and start to lose their edge. They can turn into know-it-alls." And of course, as he's telling me this, I'm understanding the martial arts aspect of it, but I'm a businessman, so I'm also starting to see the business aspect of it. that sometimes in business, and it happened to me and it happens to many of the people we work with, they start to get successful and they lose some of that hunger that they once had earlier on, and they start to maintain things rather than stretch them. They stop learning new things. They keep borrowing credibility from who they were, what they did once upon a time, and they become complacent. And in fact, I want to share 3 phases of hunger for God and kind of see which one you're in most of the time. And if you're not where you want to be, give you some ideas for stirring it back up. God is too great and incredible to go through life with this skim the surface, casual type of relationship. The first, by the way, all 3 of these are driven by desires. I think desire drives hunger. Your why. The first is what I call desire for delivery. That's the first thing that makes us hungry for God. We want Him to deliver something to us. Desire for delivery. God, and maybe something as basic as our daily bread. I got to eat. Okay, that makes us hungry for God. Would you agree? You need something, you go to God. Or maybe a promotion, it may be a job. God, I need the house loan to come through. I need to pay the bill. I'm trying to get this big deal, Lord. And so this is one form of hunger for God. And then so we have this desire for delivery, but if that's all your relationship with God is, you're gonna treat Him like some type of cosmic bellboy, to where you're only calling on Him when you need something. Now, the second type of desire is desire for deliverance. Okay, deliverance, get us out of something. Okay, so the first is deliver something to me. The second is get me out of something. It might be deliverance from an addiction. It might be deliverance from an unpleasant situation. It could be deliverance from an unhealthy relationship. It could be delivered. I do not want to have Thanksgiving with those in-laws this year, Lord. Could you please deliver us from that and into something a little bit more pleasant? But it is a form of hunger, and it's similar to delivery, and we're not asking for something, we're asking to get out of something. Now, either of those, nothing wrong with some of that. God tells us, you have not, in James it says you have not because you ask not. He wants us to come to Him for things. In 1 Peter 5:7, it says that cast all of your cares and anxieties on Him. So I'm not knocking those things. What I'm saying is if that's the level of our hunger for God, we're never going to be, as Hudson Taylor prayed, really used by God in a significant way. He's going to be very limited as to how He can work through us and how we can advance His kingdom in our own little world, whether it's in our family, in our business, in our community, in the country.
For more information or to purchase a copy of this show, visit us on the web at www.bondinfo.org or call 1-800-411-BOND.